Hello, welcome all friends to the Family Law Hour presented by Lester Law. Super excited to be here with you today. Happy February, everyone. It's a little chilly here in Denver. Hopefully where you're joining us from in Colorado isn't as chilly, but it might be. I spent a little time in the mountains earlier this week and it was beautiful. So if you are in our high country, you're living the life. So we will go ahead and get started in just a minute here. Let folks come on. If you do have a question, go ahead and share it in the chat. I will try and get to all of the questions that I can during our time together today. And what we're going to talk about today is starting a case in Colorado. So whether that be a divorce or a custody case, we're going to go through kind of the initial steps that you need to take. And if you have any specific questions around that, around getting started, go ahead and put it into the chat. If you're like me and have used Google as a great tool over the years to find information, I think I have fixed plumbing issues and household items, figured out how to code things online, right? Google is a really great source of information. But when it comes to the legal process, you can possibly get tripped up. And that's just because you don't know if the information online is accurate. And unlike fixing your sink, which you could go back to Home Depot and fix again if you don't quite get it right, when you Google something about how to approach something in the law, sometimes if you don't get it right on the first time, you can either have the door closed on you or it can be really hard to kind of correct that mistake in the future. So we want to avoid that. And that's why I started this webinar once a month for Family Law Hour, is to give you that basic information from a trusted source so that you know the information you're getting is accurate, and that what you found online maybe is outdated, maybe it was written by somebody who doesn't quite know, but that's what we're here for, is to give you some accurate information. So my name is Lauren Lester. I am a family law attorney here in Colorado. I help folks break up for the better. I specialize in family law. That is all that I do. So I handle divorce, custody cases, post-decree, so when there's an order in place that needs to be updated. But overall, no matter what I'm working on, I just don't believe that people should have to drain their savings or go into massive debt just to pay legal fees or to break up. And believe me, I have seen folks pay some hefty numbers when it comes to legal fees. I have seen bills of $10,000, $20,000 or more. And I just don't think that that's the way that it should be. If the parties are amicable, they're getting along, they're cooperating, that should be rewarded. You shouldn't have to pay a lawyer to help you and your spouse continue to get along. So my approach is pretty down to earth. Hopefully you'll see that. I take pretty reasonable approach and just helping you get to the finish line. I'm committed to simplifying the legal process and, quite frankly, just making it suck a little bit less. When you're going through a breakup, you've already got so much on your plate that when you add the complexity of the legal process on top, it can really be a lot. So I'm here to hopefully demystify some of that and make it a little bit easier. That said, every single case is different. Every case that I work on, although they're all in the same space, are different. They're unique to each individual person and each individual family and situation. So they deserve individual attention. So today I'm only going to provide information about the legal system and the process in Colorado when it comes to family law cases. Nothing I say should be taken as legal advice for your specific situation. If you have questions about what to do in your situation, you do want to contact an attorney because it's really important that you get the information for your individual unique needs. But hopefully the information that I shared today will be helpful and will get you started on the journey to getting that case filed and hopefully, like I said, demystify a little bit of that process. So all that being said, let's jump in and start to talk about how do you actually file for divorce or custody. So before we get into it, I want to make sure that some of the language is clear. So we colloquially say divorce and custody when you're talking to friends and family, but that's not quite the words that the court in Colorado uses. So a divorce case is a dissolution of marriage, is the formal name for it in Colorado. You can be married by common law in Colorado. We are one of the few states that still recognize common law marriage. And those are typically marriages where you don't go to the courthouse or you don't have a license. It's not sort of done formally. It's done between an agreement of the parties, and then they hold themselves out to be a married couple. There's a lot of nuance there. So if you're concerned whether or not you have a common law marriage, you do want to talk to an attorney about that. But if you are married either by common law or by license or something more formal in terms of a ceremony, to end that marriage, you have to dissolve it. So that's the dissolution of the marriage. And you can get divorced with kids or without kids here in Colorado, depending on your situation. If you are not legally married to the parent of your child, your co-parent, but you need to get a custody agreement in place or some sort of custody arrangement in place, that kind of case is called an allocation of parental responsibilities. A big old mouthful. It's essentially a custody case, but that's what the courts are going to call it. So when you're looking online on the court's website for the right forms, you're not necessarily going to see file for custody. You're going to see file for allocation of parental responsibilities. So just keep that in mind. All of these types of cases, both divorce and custody, are filed in domestic court or family law court here in Colorado. That's a civil court, means it's between two private parties and the state is not involved. So the state would be involved if it were in juvenile court. That's going to be a totally different situation than when you have two private individuals who are just basically trying to break up and kind of figure out what life looks like going forward. So let's talk about filing these cases. So the initial requirements before you can actually file and have a court in Colorado process your case for a divorce, you have to have lived in Colorado for at least 91 days, so just over 3 months or so before you file the case. If you've lived here less than that, Colorado likely does not have jurisdiction, so they can't handle your divorce case. If you have children, so either you're doing a custody case where the parents aren't married, or you have a divorce where you have minor children, the children have to have been living in Colorado for at least 182 days. So that's about 6 months. So it's about twice as long as just a spouse needs to be here for a divorce. So do keep that in mind. If you have kids in a marriage especially, it's not only going to be the 91 days, you're going to have to meet that 182 days for kiddos to be for Colorado to have jurisdiction over the kiddos and handle that as part of the divorce case, that custody piece. So the documents that you need to file to actually start a case, there's 3 of them. You may be able to get away with 2 depending on your particular situation. So the first is going to be a petition. So it's either going to be a petition for dissolution of marriage, divorce, or a petition for allocation of parental responsibilities, custody, where the parents aren't married. And what a petition essentially is asking the court to do something. You're coming to the court to say, hey, I need to dissolve my marriage to this person, or I need to have a custody order in place so that both parents sort of know the rules of the road. So the petition is the request to the court to do something. In both cases, whether it's a divorce or just a custody case, the petition form in Colorado is really a lot of basic information about the parties, about the kids. On the petition for custody, you do have a spot in there to identify what you feel like is in the children's best interest when it comes to a parenting time schedule. That section is not on the divorce filing. So if you're a divorce with kiddos, you won't see that section on there, but it will be addressed at some point. It's just not included on that petition. And then at the bottom of the divorce petition, the kind of difference between the 2 of them as well is you will actually check off what you were asking the court to do with this petition. So, hi court, I would like to get divorce from my spouse, whether or not you have children. At the bottom of the petition for dissolution of marriage, you will see some boxes that say I'm requesting relief for, and you'll check off all the ones that are appropriate. So some of them say best interest of the children and child support. If you don't have kiddos, that doesn't apply. If you do have kiddos, it likely does apply. So you'll go through and check off all of the different topics that you want the court to address as part of this petition. So that's your first document. Absolutely need the petition no matter which type of case you are filing. And then secondly, every case will have a domestic relations case information sheet. This is really simple. It's usually 1 page, and it's just, again, basic contact information about the parties: name, address, mailing address, phone number, date of birth, email address. Same thing with the kiddos, obviously not their email or phone number necessarily, but their full names, their dates of birth. That way the court has everybody's contact information and can identify the parties to the case. So your petition and your case information sheet, every case is going to have. Thirdly, if your either spouse or your co-parent are not signing the petition with you, you will also need to file a summons. The summons is the document that gives the other party in your case notice that a case has been opened. There's a form for it. All the wording is already on there. What you fill out is the top caption part. So it gives the information about the case. And then when you go to file, the clerk who accepts your filing will actually sign the summons. If you have a spouse who agrees with you that divorce is necessary, or a co-parent who says, yes, we need to file a custody case so we can get a parenting plan in place that we can both follow, if that other party signs your petition, you don't need a summons because they already have notice of the case happening. Additionally, if you do file all three documents because the other party hasn't signed the petition, they can down the road, instead of them being personally served, which we'll talk about in a second, they can sign a waiver of service. So you've got a few different options there, but in the basics, petition, case information sheet, and summons are the three documents that you need to file to start a case for either divorce or custody in Colorado. The great news is all of those forms can be found on the Colorado Courts website, and that is www.courts.state.co.us. You'll go on there and you'll see a tab for the forms. They will have all of the domestic relations, which again is the family law section forms on there, along with some additional instructions. But you'll find the petition, domestic relations case information sheet, and summons on there as well. Additionally, if you get those documents and you have questions, most of the county courts in Colorado have a self-help center that you can go in and ask your questions to, and they can also provide you some information. Like we mentioned in the beginning, Google can generally be your friend, but in this case, because you don't want to do anything that could potentially trip you up down the road, or something that maybe you just can't come back or walk back necessarily, don't try and Google it. Do use the court's specific website so that you know you have the right forms, and talk to an attorney if you have specific questions about your case or what you should include on those forms for your situation. So once you have your forms ready to go, you've got them all filled out, what do you do with them? So to actually file, you will take them most likely to the courthouse. Now, obviously, we live in a different time right now. So some courts in Colorado are moving towards allowing self-represented parties to file electronically. So if that's available in the county that you're filing in, fantastic. If not, you will physically print out your documents that you have filled out and take them into the courthouse to file them with the clerk of court. You will hand them to the clerk of court, they will process them, and then that is actually how the case is filed. So which court do you go to? Because there's a number of different courts, right? So if you have a divorce or a dissolution of marriage, you can file in the district court in a county where at least one spouse resides. So if you have one spouse in Denver County and one spouse in Adams County, you can file in either county's district court. That is slightly different if you have a divorce with minor children or if you have a custody case. So when there's kids involved, you need to file in the district court in the county where the children reside. So let's say our example for our divorcing couple, one lives in Denver, one lives in Adams County. If the kids live in Denver County with the one spouse, that's where the case would need to be filed because that's where the kiddos are and they're also included. So that's specifically where you file the county of either where a spouse lives or the kiddos live, and it's the district court in that county is where you will actually go to file your case. So when you go to file, there is a filing fee, and it is slightly different depending on if it's a divorce or if it's just a custody case. So in Colorado right now, the filing fee for divorce is $230, and for a allocation of parental responsibilities or custody case, it's $222. Unless you can get it waived, there is a requirement. You can file a motion to request that the fees be waived. You do have to comply with the guidelines set out by the state, which are pretty low in terms of income. But if you do qualify, fantastic, the fees would be waived. If you don't qualify, then that fee is required. You have to pay it in order for the court to take the case and accept it and actually file it. Alternatively, if you e-file, so you electronically file versus physically going into the courthouse, there's going to be a fee for electronically filing. So that's going to be anywhere between $12 and $24, depending on if there is an attorney on the case. So it'll be $12 at the base. So if you were to file a divorce electronically, it's going to be $230 plus the $12 for the filing fee. That filing fee will be incurred every time you file something electronically. So it's really good. It doesn't matter how many documents are in the filing, but every single filing has that $12 or $24 fee. So you want to be really mindful of trying to get as many documents as you can filed. If you're filing electronically, it's easy and convenient because you can do it from home and do it online, but there is that additional fee. Now, if you physically go into the courthouse and you hand them documents, you'll pay the initial filing fee, that $222, $230, depending on your type of case. But anything after that, for the most part, unless it's a specific type of document, there won't be an additional filing fee like there is with the electronic version. So you can save some in cost there. Obviously, the trade-off is the convenience of having to go physically into the court. So once the case is filed, the court has accepted it, you now have these documents, you need to let the other party know that this case exists, right? It'd be super easy if we could just go through divorce and custody cases without the other party sometimes, but that is unfair and that's not how it works. So we have to perform service. So personal service, most folks think of, right? You have a sheriff come up to you and say, you've been served, and they hand you the documents. That is what needs to happen. So service can be performed by anyone who's over the age of 18 who's not a party to the case. So that means the spouse who filed can't be the one who serves the other spouse, or the parent who filed can't be the one to serve the other parent. But anybody else over 18 can do it. Usually friends and family don't really want to get involved. So that's why the sheriff's department has a civil service division. They're going to be the next best option in terms of cost. Alternatively, if you don't know where the other party is, or maybe they're difficult to serve, or they work kind of during the day, so the sheriff's office might not be the best option for them, you can hire a private process server. So they're going to have more flexibility in terms of the times that they can go out and serve. They can also do some investigative work if you're not quite sure maybe where the other party's located, but they're going to be the most costly because they're doing all those additional services. So that's going to be an additional cost in terms of filing for divorce, right? So we have our filing fee. If we're e-filing or electronically filing, there's a cost there, and then service. Like I talked about before, you can avoid the cost for service if either the other party signs the petition, that counts as service, they have notice, or they sign a waiver of service after the case has been filed. Voluntarily, if they sign that, then fantastic, that's service. Outside of those two, service has to be performed. And if it is not, most likely the court will dismiss the case because, again, they can't go forward without the other party having notice that the case is going on. So all this being said, the process in Colorado is designed that you can do it on your own, right? All of the court's forms are on the website, like I mentioned. It gives you some basic instructions on what to do, what to file, when to do things. So it is designed that you can do it on your own, which is fantastic. You can save on hiring someone to fill out forms that maybe you feel comfortable doing yourself. But what I generally find is people have questions at some point along the way because it is a complex system. They use words like petition for dissolution of marriage that we don't use in everyday life. And there's just some sort of nuances to the process and to the law itself that you want to be aware of to make sure that you are making the best decision for you and potentially your kids or your family going forward. So do as much as you can. Again, try and stay away from Google just so you don't get bad or wrong information. And definitely ask an attorney about your specific questions so that you can get that information. So when you signed up, You probably saw that I had promised to tell you how can you get divorced for less than $500. As I mentioned right in the beginning, I have seen folks pay a very pretty penny to get divorced. And it really does break my heart when folks have to, flush out their savings or withdraw things from their retirement, right? That's for their future because they're trying to go through this process and they need help. So there is a way to do it for less than $500. We already talked about the fees, right? You're going to have that $230 or $222 filing fee, depending on the type of case you have. So unless you qualify, we're not going to get around that. But if your spouse signs the petition with you, or your co-parent signs the petition with you, or signs a waiver of service, we can avoid the service fee, which is great. Additionally, if they're cooperative, the other party is being cooperative and you can continue to work with them, that's the secret. Compromising and working with the other party is the secret to keeping costs down. If you are at each other's throats, if you can't agree on who is going to get the salt and pepper shaker, and yes, that has happened, right? If you think that the other party shouldn't have any parenting time and they think you shouldn't have any parenting time, right? You're just on opposite ends of the spectrum. That's where things are really complicated. They're really stressful. The case can drag out. And that's where when you get attorneys involved, it can get really costly because you're just fighting over every little thing. And sometimes that's needed, but I would say in the long run, for your own sanity and for your own wallet, do consider compromising everywhere that you can, because it's ultimately going to save you that stress and money. So if everything y'all can agree, if you and your spouse or you and your co-parent can reach an agreement on either the financials, if you're getting a divorce, or if you have kiddos or a custody case on a parenting plan, then you can just file all of your documents. You'll have to pay the e-filing fee if you go that way. But if you can file everything at once, maybe it's another $12, $24, $36. So now we're still under $300 to file, and then you will complete the case, which is phenomenal, right? Most folks, if you told them it only cost you under $500 to get divorced or to do a custody case, they would be shocked and probably a little bit jealous if they spent a lot more than that. So you can do it under $500. And with that little extra wiggle room, if you are looking for some help I don't want to Google it. I've listened to Lauren. She says Google might be a little bit dangerous, but I want to make sure I get all the information in a way that I can understand. There's a million forms on the court's website. How do I know which one is the right one to use? I think I have the right one. To help you through that process, I have developed an online guide that's going to walk you from first step to last step through both of those types of cases. So divorce with or without kids, and then custody cases. And that service, that guide is called Law Guides. It's at colawguides.com. And you can go on it anytime and purchase your guide. You have unlimited access as long as you need it, but it will walk you step by step through the process. It'll tell you the forms when you need them. It won't give you information you don't need at that particular point. So you can walk through step by step and not be overwhelmed, but handle the entire thing on your own. So again, it's on sale right now because of COVID. I know that budgets are tight and I want to get this information out to as many people as possible. It's only $97 right now. And it goes through the entire case for you. So even if you added that on top of your filing fee, and possibly your e-filing fees, you're still going to be under $500 to get through a divorce or custody case in Colorado, which is fantastic. If anyone has any questions, please do feel free to put them into the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about filing a case or just family law cases in general in Colorado. If you're looking for any additional help, so maybe you've purchased law guides, but you still have a few questions about your particular situation, and as we talked about, it is best to ask an attorney about those. I have a monthly coaching subscription that you can sign up for, which will give you all of that additional support that you need while you go through the process. Any of the fees that I do are going to be flat fee. So you always know the cost up front. I have different packages depending on your needs. So whether you just want some guidance and review of your documents, that's one package. Some folks get into it and they say, this is really overwhelming and I don't want to have to deal with this. Can you please take it over? I also have a write and negotiate package. So you do have several different options. You do not have to spend the $10, $20 plus $1,000 to break up. If you can be amicable, if you can be cooperative, if you can compromise, you can still get attorney help so that you feel that peace of mind, that security. You know that somebody is in your corner for a price that is not going to drain your savings account. We want to make sure that after this breakup, you have set yourself up as best as possible to be able to thrive going forward. And draining savings is not a way to do that. So we do really want to avoid that at any way that we can. So if you are interested in having some attorney help with those flat fees and those customizable solutions, you can check out all of my services and pricing on my website, which is mylifelawyer.com. Again, mylifelawyer.com. You'll see all the information there, as well as a link to schedule a consult if you would like to chat further. So if there aren't any questions about filing for divorce or the process here in Colorado, I hope that all of this information was helpful, that gave you a start for how to start your case here. If you would like any more information, do check out the website. Check out Law Guides, colawguides.com, to get the start to finish instructions on how to go through the case yourself and get it done. And if you want to, please come back next month. I will be here every month, the second Wednesday at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to answer questions. Next month, we will start talking about the financial disclosures that are needed in each case, which can be kind of a complicated, tricky, confusing part of the process. So if you'd like information about that, do come back and join me next month, the second Wednesday at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And until then, I wish you the best of luck. I hope that you are able to divorce for the better, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining today.